Your car is overheating. You're in the middle of the street, and you're like, Katherine got really pretty.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the third episode of the Millennial TV podcast. We are your hosts, Liz,
Adrienne,
and Candace.
Today we will be recapping Season 1, Episode 3 of Laguna Beach, Fast Cars and Fast Women. Just a reminder that if you'd like to watch along with us, you can find Laguna Beach on Netflix, and if you're in Canada, it is available for free on CTV's website. Before we get into the episode, let's talk about our pop culture news of the week. This past week, Danny Masterson, who played Hyde on That 70s Show, was finally convicted for his sexual assault crimes he committed 20 years ago. He was found guilty on 2 counts of rape and sentenced to 30 years to life in prison, and he will not be up for parole until 25 and a half years has been served. So I've been following this case since the allegations started becoming more public. So I was really excited to see that they gave him the maximum sentencing, because usually celebrities, especially ones that are involved in Scientology, they kind of get off easier. So
yeah,
thank God they threw the book at him. I'm not going to talk too much about him. And I wanted to talk more about the drama with Ashton, Kutcher, and Mila Kunis, and then other members from That 70s Show that was happening. So once the trial ended, it leaked that Ashton and Mila had written character letters to the judge in hopes that it would show the judge the person they've known for 25 years and persuade her to give him a less extreme sentencing. In both of the letters, they go on and on about how anti-drug Danny was and how he was such a good influence on them to keep them away from doing drugs while being in the entertainment industry. And this is interesting since he was actively drugging women during these years that they were all working together.
Well, right. And what does being anti-drug have anything to do with being a rapist?
But exactly. Okay. Exactly, yeah.
I know. Two completely different things.
Yeah. Because he was anti-drug.
Yeah.
So they also talked about how he was always on time for work. He pulled his weight at his job, and what a great father he is. So if you haven't read the letters, I encourage you to look them up, because it's really infuriating reading these things that they're coming up with, thinking that a judge is going to be oh, well, he was on time for work and he was really nice to all the crew members, so we're going to give him a lesser sentencing.
Yeah. So that means, the rape wasn't as bad as
exactly
as it is because he was on time for work.
It's separate from who he is as a person.
Yeah. The whole thing is so bizarre. I watched the apology video on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
It's they're only apologizing because they were caught, and it was basically sorry, we didn't know these were going to be leaked.
It felt like they had an attitude about it the entire time. I felt like they were kind of mad for whatever reason, and
they were aggressive,
very aggressive. And it felt like Mila especially was just reading lines that they had prepared or whatever, but in a really mean way. I was just what is happening right now?
It didn't seem like a genuine apology, or they were acting it was a genuine apology. And the only thing I could think of, because she probably didn't mean it, but she had a reaction to something that as she was saying it, and I'm I cannot wait for one of those body language analysts on YouTube to do it. And she had an eyebrow raise at one point, and I'm oh, that was inconsistent with what she was saying.
It was way more, this is stupid that you guys are mad at us.
Yes,
you know what
exactly.
I mean?
It
was very
I'm gonna say this so that it gets the heat off our backs, but we don't necessarily truly mean
it.
So disingenuous. And it sucks because I like Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher a lot.
Yeah.
Mila Kunis is she's been my I've had a crush on Mila Kunis since early That 70s Show. She's so adorable. So I was just this is unfortunate. And I like Ashton Kutcher. I have heard not so great things about his foundations and stuff, but you kind of hear that about a lot of celebrities. Ian Somerhalder has his foundation, and I've heard not so great things about that one either. So it's just kind of you never really know. But yeah, this was really disappointing for me.
I agree.
I was extremely disappointed, and it's they're we support victims, and I'm but you don't, because regardless, you were still trying to get somebody a lesser sentence for something that he's been proven to have done.
Exactly.
So it's, and I get that you can have conflicting feelings about somebody that you've known for 25 years who did something terrible, I totally get that. But you also don't have to write a character reference for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah.
There were a couple other things too that I've been reading about now with the whole thing. And do you guys remember when Topher Grace, when he left the show, about how much like media backlash he got as far as like his character, and they were trying to portray him as like this standoffish guy who didn't want to hang out with anybody and who wasn't friends with anybody on the set. And now of course it's coming out that like Danny was like actively bullying him on the set because he wouldn't like go along with like what he wanted to do with things, and it wasn't like, you're not part of our friends group, you know.
Wait, this is Topher Grace?
Yes. Yeah. And so it made me feel like a little bit of justice for Topher, because he seems like the only one on the set like that was actually like, I have morals and I'm not going to be a jerk to women and things like that. That's the vibe that I got.
You know what it is though? Like the other characters and actors were so likable in comparison to Topher Grace. So it was really easy to believe that Topher Grace was like on the outs of everything. And like then he leaves the show and everyone's mad about that. So like it was super easy to believe that narrative. But yeah, now it's like, what was really happening?
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you guys see, there was a TikTok video escalating. They had asked Sharon Osbourne on some interview who the rudest celebrity she had ever met was. And she said she couldn't remember his name, but she was like, Kelly was with her. And she looked at Kelly and she was like, the one who's married to the actress and he was on that 70s show. And Kelly was like, Kelly like got her eyes really big and she was like, Ashton Kutcher? And Sharon was like, yes, rude little boy. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and now that's circulating because of everything that's happening, obviously.
And that was from an old interview that went on?
Yeah. And I was like, that's super interesting. But yeah, Kelly was like shocked that she was like, wait, Ashton Kutcher? And Sharon was like, yeah, he was very rude little boy. That's like what she called him. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I thought that was super interesting. Yeah, it's hard. You never know with these celebrities. Like, you know, they put out this image of themselves and you never really know what's real and what's not. And so it's eye-opening a little bit. You kind of have to go, And then it's like, do I support this person because like I like their work still, or it's hard
separate the person from their art, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to do that, but honestly, you have to at this point because so many people, especially like from our era of television and movies, like are just getting canceled left and right.
I know.
So, I mean, it's really unfortunate.
Sad.
Yeah.
Are Mila and Ashton Scientologists? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Right? No, okay.
They're very down to earth when it comes to like, now I don't know them personally, but they're very down to earth when it comes to like their lifestyle choices and their kids.
Right.
Like I know I've seen a lot of like Mila Kunis interviews where she's like, we don't want our kids to be entitled. Like they don't just get whatever they want. Yeah. Like it's not that kind of situation. So, I mean, from the narrative that they have put out there, I think that Scientology would be like so out of the realm of them.
For the two of them, yeah.
One other thing was that as part of Danny's case, like some of the victims had said that they reported it to the Church of Scientology, and it was the church that was trying to suppress or basically like sweep it under the rug.
Oh wait, is he a Scientologist?
Oh yeah,
Danny is.
So,
yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
A celebrity in Scientology, which makes them even more like powerful. And if I were to hear that as a friend, even though someone might be such a good friend to me, that would probably be reason enough to support like me not wanting to write any sort of like testimony or character witness statement for them, knowing that like Scientology is already so suppressive and that they were helping to cover it up. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to believe that Ashton and Mila did this, but
it sucks. Yeah.
I know. And like, it was so nice that like, you know, they were together on the show and then they got together in real life and
not right away, because that would have been creepy because she was young on the show. They took time.
Yeah.
And then they came back together.
She fully lied to producers about her age to get on the show. And she, like, looking back on it, she does look very young when the show starts, but I never even, like, it like went over my head. But yeah, she's definitely like 14. Yeah, so that's crazy. But I am trying to, like, in my head, I'm, like, trying to rationalize it. I'm like, well, they did know him for a long time, and maybe they didn't know that side of him, and, like, people are really good at hiding parts of themselves. So, you know, I can't blame anybody. But again, you didn't have to write the character witness, though, you know? So,
yeah.
And, like, I get it, like, that would be hard, especially if it was somebody that you're really close with and their family's like, "Can you please do this?" You know, that would be really hard to say no. Like, I think of it in terms of, like, if it was one of my best friends that I'd known for that long and they did something horrible, like, what do you like, that's not synonymous with the person you know. So
Right,
how do
Yeah,
you
that's what I think about too.
Yeah, so how do you know
How do you reconcile that? I don't
Yeah.
know.
So, I mean, I totally get it if they were conflicted about it, but again, they have to think about their celebrity. And, you know, what they say matters, unfortunately, in this world of celebrities. And I think that they should have thought about it a little bit harder. It's a little bit different when no one knows who you are.
Exactly. It was really funny though this morning because I told Kyle that this is what I was going to be talking about. And I came out into the living room at one point and he was like, "You're never going to believe what I just saw." And he was watching the movie Face Off. And I had totally even forgotten about like this scene in the movie, but he rewound it for me. And Danny Masterson is in the movie. He plays the boyfriend of John Travolta's daughter. And there is a straight up scene where he is like trying to kiss her and then he starts like forcing himself on her. And John Travolta comes out and like pulls him out of the car and like kicks his ass and stuff. So that was great. That was very satisfying to watch. But I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
Art imitating
such
life.
weird
timely.
foreshadowing. Yeah. So if you want to see him get beat up, then look up that clip. All right, well, that's our pop culture news of the week. And now we are going to get into the episode. The episode starts with a little before the credits scene where we see Kristen and her brother Mike. They are in the kitchen of their house, and Kristen asks him, "Do you think I could persuade Dad into getting me a new car?" Mike laughs at her, and they have a little back and forth argument about taking care of the car. And Kristen says, "You know that car is a piece of shit." And he tells her she's not going to be able to do it. So I thought this was a great little foreshadowing into what happens later on in the episode.
I love Mike here because he seems like the typical teasing brother.
Yeah.
And just like it's super funny to watch. Kristen's dad seems really old school. Even though they lived in Laguna, he tried to keep his kids really grounded, I think. And making Kristen keep her hand-me-down car is just one example of this. I feel like there's a couple other ones throughout the season and the show that we'll talk about. But yeah, I think her family was very grounded in comparison to others. I also think Jim and Kathy tried to keep Lauren and her siblings pretty grounded, but they were like rich. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit different.
The show tries to paint like all of these teenagers are super like rich, they're young, living in Laguna, but Kristen's house looks so normal.
It
Like in that
does.
scene,
Yeah.
it was like very different from what Lauren's house looks like, and that made me think like the only rich one on the show is Lauren.
Yeah.
Like everyone else is living in pretty
because
normal
Steven
homes.
says
Like,
his house was like pretty standard too. So
and they showed the outside of Dieter's house that was also pretty normal.
So Trey and Lauren had the best
Yeah.
houses in Laguna.
Oh yeah.
But I did want to mention before this scene on the previously on, Lauren cracks me up because she said Kristen only had two things on her mind: scoring a new car and a junior named Sam. But I was laughing because it comes off so salty and it makes Lauren look so desperate. And then she says, like, now that Kristen's out of the picture, Steven and I can finally hang out again. And it's like, I can't believe they made her say this stuff. Like, it's so awful. But it sets it up really nicely because you're like, oh, like we get to see Sam and like, you know, whatever. So I had to mention that because I thought it was so funny.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
I guess we should talk about Mike because he's passed away since the show. I don't know what happened. Do you guys know? Were there any details released on that?
Well, what I heard from Kristen talking about it was like Mike was going through a mental health sort of crisis, and I think that there were drugs involved, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like I feel like, you know, that was in the picture, and one day he just drove his car off and disappeared.
He
Like
was
never
missing,
came home, basically. It was what I heard.
Yeah.
I heard that they found him, I don't know, like in the woods somewhere or something. Like they did end up tracking down where he was, but they don't really know exactly what happened. So it's really sad.
I remember
Really
when
sad.
he went missing because it was like all over the news and stuff. And my head immediately went to this scene because it was the only thing I could, you know.
It's the only time we see him.
But
right?
my heart broke. I think so. And maybe in the graduation episode in season 2, maybe. But yeah, and my heart broke for Kristen because I'm sure they were close, and I mean, that really stinks. And I feel really bad about all that. Yeah, it's nice that we have this cute little scene between the two of them.
She did say that too, that it was really nice to rewatch this and have this, be part of her memory forever.
Yeah.
So the episode begins with Lauren, Lo, and Jen. They're eating lunch and they're discussing the bonfire from the previous night. Jen asks if Steven talked to Kristen, and Lauren tells her that he was pretty bummed last night and was saying how much he hated the town and wanted to leave. Lo asks how far away Lauren and Steven will be from each other when they start college in San Francisco, and Lauren says, like 5 minutes. Lo says she thinks Steven and Lauren are going to get married, to which Lauren replies, I don't want to marry Steven. And then Lo and Jen start saying that they would have pretty babies, and Jen tells her, your babies would be like the popular people at school. Lo and Lauren share a look with each other, and they laughed at Jen's comment, and yeah, it was definitely a okay moment.
I love when Lauren says, sweet Jen.
Yeah.
Because you can totally tell that Jen is definitely the dumb blonde of the group.
Yeah.
Like, she just says stuff and they're like, okay, Jen, like, sure, Jan. Like, So Lauren's reaction to marrying Steven actually surprised me because she was so put off by it. And I'm like, that's not the Lauren we know and love. Like, we love Steven.
No, I don't believe it. That little smile from her, I thought that it was like, those crushes that you don't want to admit how much you like them, but you like totally dream about ending up with them, and you fantasize about what your life would look like. And that was like what I got from Lauren's little smile. Because there's no way Lauren did not want to marry Steven.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The first thing that the girls discuss, though, is Steven and Kristen. And I feel like it's the most awkward thing ever, because why would Jen Bunny know if Steven was going to talk to Kristen or not? Like, she literally sits down and says, so did Steven talk to Kristen last night?
Yeah.
And it's like, why is that? Like, the producers had to ask her to say that because it's so random. Totally. How would she know that Steven was even planning to say that or planning to have a talk to her? Did he sit down and tell everyone his plans before he did it? Like, it makes no sense. And we get another appearance of Lauren's favorite white bag.
Again.
Yes, again.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Jen's mini skirt with the huge mic pack sticking out made me laugh really hard. Because I was like, oh my god, it's just this little tiny jean mini skirt with a gigantic mic pack hanging out the back. I'm like, that's normal.
I also don't remember Jen being so blonde. Like, I always feel like she's a dark brunette kind of hair color in my head. So seeing her as blonde, I was like, whoa, who is this?
Sweet Jen.
Yep. So when that scene ended, I thought it was really funny. They cut to like a beach montage of people surfing and stuff, but then they showed a little boy and a little girl holding hands on the beach, and the little boy was just totally naked. And I had to pause. I had to rewind it and be like, wait, is he really naked? And he totally was. So I was kind of shocked that they included that on what aired live on TV, just a naked butt of a little boy.
I have written down, whose cute little baby butt is that? So random.
Yes, yeah. It was so weird.
And before we move on from the scene, the girls are talking about Lauren getting hit with a water balloon by Talon in the eye at the bonfire, and I was hysterically laughing because I don't remember paying that much attention to that conversation before ever, but I'm just laughing at Talon like cold cocking Lauren in the eye with a water balloon.
That he brought water balloons at all.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so funny. Lo's like, it was Talon.
Yep. So next we see Kristen and Jessica eating at Ruby's Diner. Kristen tells Jessica that she and Steven got into a fight at the bonfire and that Steven said, Who knows what you've been doing with Sam? Steven told Kristen that she says one thing, then acts the complete opposite. And Kristen confesses that this is true, but says it's just her way of getting over things. A week and a half ago, she said she still liked him, but she thought he acted like he wasn't into it. Then at the bonfire, he told her he wanted to ease into things again. And now Kristen doesn't know what to do about Sam. And Jessica says, it's so dumb. And that whole conversation was really hard to keep track of a little bit, of just the back and forth of he said this and then I said that, and then are we together or not?
Communication is so important here, people.
Mm-hmm.
They clearly don't know how to talk to each other. It is becoming increasingly more obvious each episode. It drove me nuts that Kristen is talking about Steven being mad and says, who knows what you've done with Sam or whatever. And Jessica's super upset that Steven is bringing this up. She's like, oh my God. And I'm like, but honestly, he should be, because his girlfriend is trying to hang out with another guy.
You know what, though? It sounded like they were broken up. Now, do I think that Kristen was very messy with the timeline and that's why they broke up? Yes, but I feel like this was like one of the times where they were on a break.
Yeah, that's the vibe that I got too, yeah.
Probably, yeah. And MTV didn't want us to know that, of course, because it's more drama if they're together. But yeah, I was just kind of like, well, of course he's asking who knows what you've done with Sam because you're his girlfriend, and that's upsetting. Right. So yeah, I will say that Kristen admits that she tells Steven one thing and acts a different way, which I thought was really insightful for a teenager. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that she recognizes that about herself, that she says she really likes him and then is all over Sam. So I thought that was very mature of her and surprising, honestly, within the conversation that they were having, because none of these teenagers often admit fault.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
In any way. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really insightful for Kristen.
I did think that it was crazy, though, that she moved on, like, if she did, from Steven so quickly, because there's totally two different types of people in high school. It's like the people that harp on the relationship that they had after the breakup for like months and years after. And then there's Kristen, who's like, oh, we're done? Okay, I'm gonna go call Sam.
Yeah.
It was like right away, even though Steven was like her love, you know? So I was amazed by how quickly she was able to move on. Which one were you ladies?
Oh gosh.
What are the choices?
I was the one that would dwell on the relationship and what went wrong and what did I do, and then until another guy came along, and then I'd be, you know, different story.
It was longer than a day,
Mm-hmm.
at least.
Yes.
I was probably that way too. I was always the girl that, like, I didn't like anybody until they liked me, and then I would fall head over heels for them, and they'd be like, I'm good. Like, literally, like, that always happened to me. Like, I had no interest in them, and then somebody'd be like, so-and-so said you're cute. And I'd be like, oh yeah, I never thought about that before, but like, yeah, totally. And then I'd be like into it, and they'd be like, just kidding. And I'd be like, cool.
You're like, great.
I wasn't like slowly falling in love with you. No, it's fine. So yeah, I was definitely like the one who dwelled about it after the fact, usually. So,
and I was always the one that was like having crushes on people, but I would never let them know that I liked them. I would die if anyone ever found out who I liked.
That is so funny to me. You said that before. That's so funny to me.
You know, when Facebook was really big, I would like click on, you know, so-and-so's profile just to check updates like on the daily. But I'm like, I don't think this person knows who I am and that they're looking at their profile.
I bet you were like a Facebook stalker extraordinaire.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I actually saw one of my high school friends one time was stalking this guy that she liked and accidentally put his name in like the status update instead of the search bar, and it posted, and we were sitting in class and she like freaked out, which I laughed so hard about. But
did he see it?
No, I mean, she took it down right away.
Gosh.
But like, imagine doing that and then like not realizing that you put in your crush's name in your status update. Oh, I would die.
So that reminds me of, it was literally like the worst moment of my whole life. But so a boy, and I'm not going to say his name just in case he ever stumbles across this podcast, but he was like, from elementary school to high school, he was like the hot guy. Like, you know, like, like let's just call him like Blake Andrews, okay? So Blake Andrews is like the hottest guy, and anybody who goes to my school or whoever listens to this will know exactly who I'm talking about. But he added me on Facebook one day, and it was out of the blue. I never spoken 2 words to this guy. So I'm like, oh my God, he added me on Facebook. Like, he knows who I am. So I added him back, and then I waited like a couple days, and then I made my status when the hottest guy in school adds you on Facebook, thinking he would never ever connect the dots somehow. I don't know.
Oh my God.
And he posted a smiley face on the status.
Oh.
And I about shit my pants. And I was like, oh my God, he knows. Like, I literally didn't think I was on his radar enough that he would care. But he obviously knew that I thought he was the hottest guy in school then. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty embarrassing. And I immediately deleted the status. And he and I have never talked about this. I don't think we've ever actually exchanged more than 3 words to each other in our whole lives.
That's so funny.
But if he's listening to this at any point, he will know exactly who he is.
I cannot believe he put a smile on that status.
I mean, bold, right?
Yeah.
Major.
Because what if I wasn't talking about him?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I would love it if you played it that way, just so
I
it
should
wouldn't
have,
mess with his.
but I was so shocked.
I mean, clearly he thinks that he's the hottest guy in school.
But I was so shocked that he even knew my name, or that I was even like on his radar, that I was like, I didn't know what to do. I just panicked. Yeah. So yeah.
Imagine you didn't delete that. And like years later, they actually remind you of the post that you posted years ago.
That's why I deleted it. Like, I literally, like, that was so embarrassing. And I don't know why I thought that he wouldn't connect the dots, because he literally just added me. I don't know why I was like, that's a good idea to make that your status. I have no idea. In hindsight, sorry, buddy, that was weird. I don't think he cares about Laguna Beach, so I don't think he'll. I don't think he'll ever actually listen to this. But just in case, sorry, buddy, that was weird.
Yep. So the next scene we see is Steven driving to talk to Trey. Steven has just gotten off work, and Trey asks him if any hotties walked in today. Steven says he's waiting for summertime on that one. Trey invites Steven to a fashion show that his parents said he could bring some friends to. And Steven asks who's going to go, and Trey says, me, you, and I was thinking of asking LC, since she's into that sort of fashion thing. Steven says that would be sick and agrees to go.
Question for you guys. What is Steven doing there? He just rolls up to Trey's house, and then Trey rides off on his skateboard, and it's like the weirdest interaction.
Yeah. I thought that Trey was going to get in the car with him. I thought he was like picking him up, and then he just leaves. So yeah, I thought the same thing.
I was like, MTV had to have set this up just for like a transition scene. Like, they needed a pickup scene.
Well, I also think the whole fashion show was set up by MTV.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you think so too?
Oh yeah. But this scene in particular, I think it was a setup scene that they were like, we need this setup to set up the fashion show.
Yeah.
So we need Trey to act like he's inviting Steven. They were like, Steven, can you just drive to Trey's house?
Yeah.
And have this really awkward interaction about Elsie, and then Trey will just ride off on his skateboard like the cool guy he is. Like, it stuck out to me as so strange. And watching it originally, I was just like, yeah, seems legit. Like, and now I'm just like, what are they doing? Like, this is not normal.
He like drove to his house and had a conversation and didn't even get out of his car.
He's like, hey, want to go to this fashion show? Yeah, sure. I'm gonna invite LC. Awesome. All right, dude, later.
Yeah.
Definitely trying hard not to break the fourth wall.
Yes. Then we see Kristen, Alex, and Sam driving in the car, and this is our first time getting to see what Sam looks like. Kristen is going on about wanting to get a new car, and Sam tells her to try and get good grades. Kristen tells him that her dad said if she had a 3.5 in school that he'd buy her a new car, and she has a 3.6, but obviously he has not followed through with what he told her. And she tells Sam, this car is seriously falling apart. And I thought that was funny because a 3.5 in high school, like, that seems pretty attainable to me. like that doesn't seem too hard.
I actually said a 3.6 was pretty good.
Yeah.
Is that not good?
No, I think it's good. It's not like he was like, you have to have a perfect 4.0 or something to get a new car. It seemed like, okay, I could do that,
I was like, pretty sure my GPA was like 2.0. I didn't try very hard in high school. I got a lot of C's. I was there to like socialize. School was very secondary to all the other things happening at school. So, like actual learning was like bottom of the list for me. It was like boys, friends, theater, homework. So yeah, 3.6 was like, she's doing pretty good. Were you guys 4.0ers or were you like?
No,
I literally had to look this up because we don't even use that like GPA
oh really?
in Canada. Like, yeah, we just go by percentages.
That's funny.
So I'm here looking at what a 3.5 is. It's like between a B minus.
It's like mostly A's and B's would
A.
be your report card, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys do freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, or no?
No.
Okay.
So I literally have to like think about that.
Yeah.
In my high school, and it's actually different across all the different schools, but I had an elementary, middle, and high school, and high school was like 9 to 12.
Okay. Yeah. That is really interesting that it's different because I always thought that freshman, junior, senior, like that, I thought that was like pretty universal, but I guess like, yeah, there's no reason it would be.
Yeah.
Super random.
So they pull into a fancy car dealership in Newport Beach and they go inside and there's a car that they see for $150,000. Alex notices that there's no door on this car and asks, is it just a thing to look at? Kristen and Sam climb into a different fancy car and he tells her that he could see her in a car like this. We then cut to Kristen and Alex in a car that Alex describes as looking like the Batmobile. And Sam is across the room and Kristen says, look at Sam, he's so hot. Sam comes over and they all look in the car together and then we get a cute little montage of Kristen, Sam, and Alex sitting in different cars, smiling at each other and laughing while the song in the background is playing How Lucky We Are. And I loved Alex's outfit in the scene, the pink tank top with the striped black and white skirt.
I have that written down too. Most 2000s thing ever.
Yes, I had a couple different versions of that skirt, so seeing that was great.
Kristen's pigtails too, like her little mini pigtails, very 2000s. Raise your hand if you think Steven's way hotter than Sam.
Oh, I was just gonna ask if you guys thought Sam was cute or not. Yeah.
I don't understand the appeal.
He's okay.
Yeah.
He's okay. He's better than season 3's Cameron.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If we're putting him on a scale. And then toss in Jason. I mean, Jason looked like a man next to all of these boys. So
Jason looked legit 45.
Yes.
Like, I am like, why is this? And he like was smoking and it made it even worse.
And he had like the whole beard.
And I always think back to him and Jessica fighting at Winter Formal. And it is the most adult looking fight that I've ever seen. Jessica's like half naked. She's like wearing pajamas. Okay. And he's got a cigarette like hanging out of his mouth. He can barely speak because he's so drunk. Like, I was like, and these kids are in what grade?
Right, yeah.
They're not even 20.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Like, if they were ever gonna pitch like reasons your kids shouldn't watch Laguna Beach, it would probably be that scene and the Cabo scene.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like freaking Jason with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth talking about how he's not cheating on her, he swears.
I feel like he would be the student that shows up to class and then all the other kids think that he's the teacher and then are like, oh, you're just another student.
Not like a regular teacher. I'm a cool teacher.
Yeah.
I wrote here, Kristen calls her car the old Isuzu, and it is an Isuzu Trooper, which I had to look up because for years I thought she called it a ZuZu, like ZuZu. And whenever my boyfriend's old car would break down, I would literally tell him, like, there's the old ZuZu, because I was thinking back to this scene. And so I didn't realize it was the actual model of the car until I listened to the Back to the
I love
Beach
you.
podcast.
That's so funny.
For years, his car was the old ZuZu every time it would break down.
Oh my god, that's amazing. I love that for you.
Next, we see Steven, Trey, and Lauren on their way to LA to the fashion show. They talk about how big the city is, and Lauren points out how the stores on the streets are weird because they're all so open. I just had to say that the montage of this was very interesting to me because usually when places are going to Los Angeles, you get the Hollywood sign and the Walk of Fame and all that stuff. And instead, they were showing a really sketchy area in the fashion district.
Yeah.
And instead, I was like, my car's going to get broken into in this neighborhood. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's like boarded up.
Yeah. People. Yes. Yeah, it was really awkward. Tense.
Yeah,
oh.
It was funny. And it's funny because when I lived in Los Angeles, like that is what the fashion district looks like. And it is kind of sketchy, but I gotta say that you can get really good deals there. And we actually bought Kyle's wedding ring in the jewelry district for only $50. So
Oh, wow.
he has a different one now. We got him a nicer one many years later, but when we were broke and poor, like we were like, this will do.
I lived 6 hours from LA my like basically whole life, and I've never been there.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Even today?
I've never been to LA.
Man.
The hills never made you want to go to LA?
No. I mean, yeah, but
yeah.
yeah, no, I've never been there. I went to Disneyland, which is in Anaheim, which is kind of close to LA, but I've never seen like the Boulevard.
Okay, well, you're not really missing
No,
out, honestly.
you're not.
I have always been mesmerized by like, you know, stars and Hollywood and all of that glitz and glam. And I remember going on like a family trip to LA, and we stayed sort of around that Hollywood area, but just like a little bit off. And walking down Hollywood Boulevard, I'm like, this is Hollywood? I'm like,
I know.
what
I'm
is
sure
this
it's
place?
like dirty and
It's
disgusting.
nasty, yeah.
And then those people dressed up as characters are constantly trying to take photos with you, but they're trying to like get your money. I'm like, get away from me. I don't even want to look at you.
People always ask me
Yeah.
that about San Francisco. They're like, "Oh my gosh, is it wonderful?" I'm like, "It kind of smells." I'm like, my best friend went to college at San Francisco State where Steven went. So it's always really funny that opening scene in season 2 where he's standing outside of San Francisco State, because I've been there like 1,000 times. So I'm always like, oh my God, I like was there all the time. But it kind of smells, and there's a lot of homeless and a lot of weed and naked people.
Oh, naked people.
The Castro district is particularly full of naked people. It's like the LGBTQ district, which we used to go out downtown there all the time just because it was really fun. And lots of naked people. People pee everywhere. Like, I'm serious. Like, San Francisco is not like, people have this dream in their head, and I'm like, no. It's not that great.
Yeah, when we lived in LA, we would always joke that you would see people having their kids sit on the sidewalk where the stars are to be like, oh, sit down and I'm going to take your picture with this celebrity star. And we're like, yeah, yesterday we saw a hobo like peeing on that star. Like, it's so disgusting. People just don't realize. Yeah.
Yeah, people in like cities aren't very well taken care of.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, they're just not. So yeah, it's sorry for any dreams we're shattering here, but if your lifelong dream is LA or San Francisco, sorry.
So in the car, they're discussing the fashion show, and Steven says there's going to be a bunch of anorexic models cruising up and down the catwalk. And he says there's a fine line between skinny and unattractive, to which Lauren replies, they made skinny sexy. And this just sort of made me think of, because this was in the same era that America's Next Top Model was like so big, and it was normal at the time, I guess, and really cringy to look back on.
Yeah, I have written body positivity is a big movement. Things have totally flipped.
Yes.
Things are so different now, and you couldn't get away with that conversation.
You can't even say like anorexic models.
Right.
Like, that would be a no-go these days.
Lauren has a face full of makeup in this scene, and I'm pretty sure her eyeshadow is blue, which I'm absolutely living for, because blue eyeshadow is so not a thing anymore.
We then get back to Kristen, Sam, and Alex driving after they have left the car dealership. Sam sarcastically says, your car sounds pretty good, to a noise that it's making while they're driving. And Kristen says, oh yes, please break down on me. And then Alex reminds her that if her car breaks down, she won't have a car. Kristen then has to pull the car over because it starts smoking. And Kristen asks, what do we do? What if it explodes? And they all start to freak out when Kristen says, my car is Dunzo. And that phrase is so iconic to me, Dunzo.
Iconic.
Yes.
Okay, so is Dunzo from the show, or did people in that area say Dunzo?
The first time I heard it was on the show.
I've heard it before. It wasn't like a weird word for me. I think it was just so funny in this context. Like, my car is Dunzo.
Yep. Just the way she says it and everything. Yeah. So Kristen starts to call AAA and cars begin honking behind her.
Oh, wait. And she's literally parked in the middle.
Yes, the middle of the street.
Like, not the side, the middle.
Her car turned off on her and she couldn't turn it back on.
I can't. It's hysterical. That's the middle of the street.
Awful.
It's so dangerous.
Yeah. And she's pissed that people are honking at her.
Yeah, it was hilarious, like how one woman drove by and yelled, "Move it." She drives her car by really fast honking. Then when she calls AAA, they say they're going to take 30 minutes to come out. And when they look out the window, there's a huge traffic jam that this is causing, gigantic line of cars. And Kristen says, "Oh my God, that's bad. That's like gnarly traffic."
Meanwhile, MTV is just like rolling the camera.
Yes.
Best situation that's ever happened.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So while they're sitting in the car, their friend Katherine randomly drives up next to them and asks what's happening. Kristen tells her the car overheated, and when Katherine drives away, Kristen says, "Katherine got really pretty."
It's literally my favorite scene. So I love it. Your car is overheating, you're in the middle of the street, and you're like, Katherine got really pretty. And I feel bad for Katherine if she watched that later. Like, got really pretty?
Yeah.
Like,
was she not before?
Oh my God, I didn't even get that.
Like, if I was Katherine, I would have been so upset.
I thought it was like a big compliment because I felt like it was like Kristen's high school insecurity showing through. And like she was saying that comment in front of Sam to try to get him to be like agreeing or disagreeing with her, but basically trying to make her feel better.
Yeah, I just put myself in Katherine's shoes. Because she wasn't like a cast member, you know, and you don't see her.
Yeah, we never saw her again. Yeah.
So like, I'm like, that poor girl was just, Katherine got really pretty. That's her legacy on the show.
So while they're in the car, they're talking about how ironic it is that her car broke down the day they went to look at new cars, and Alex says that it's fate telling her to get a new car. A cop on a motorcycle pulls up, and Kristen says, "I hate Laguna cops." And it seems like the cop is trying to get her to pull over, but she's not able to move the car. And she yells, "Get off your motorcycle, you lazy ass." I couldn't believe how she was yelling. I mean, he probably couldn't hear her, but yeah, she was so mad.
Imagine talking to a cop like that.
I know. Yeah.
And personally, I love a man in uniform and I love a man with an accent. So your girl would have been like, "What is up?" But you know, she was not into the accent.
Yeah.
So, and I love when she's like imitating. "So you're telling me?" Like, Kristen, you can't just talk to cops like that. And she's like, "I literally can't move it. It literally shut off on me. I can't move it. What do you want me to do?"
I know, and like as a teenage girl being that sassy, like, and having such an attitude, I could never.
No, especially to a person of authority like that, like a police officer. I would be terrified.
I was really sassy like that, like to my parents and stuff. Which, sorry guys, sorry for those ears, but like I would have never to a teacher or a police officer. Or, like, that's insane. Like, I could be sassy to my mom and dad all day, but I would never. Like, that was intense. I was watching her like, I mean, he could arrest her. Like, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, all right, get back in the car. Fantastic. I just love that the cop was British randomly.
Yeah, it's so weird.
In Laguna Beach. Just strolling in his little scooter.
Yeah, I just thought it was crazy how she was yelling at everybody, just her reaction in general, because I would probably be crying and calling my parents of like, "I'm stranded in the middle of the street." And, you know, I wouldn't be yelling.
Yeah, I would have been scared of getting in trouble because my car broke down.
The way her car was smoking, I would have been freaking out. I would have been like, "Everybody get out of the car.
Yes.
On fire." Like, they just sat there. I was like, "Oh, no. I would be on the side of the road and everybody could yell at my car and not me."
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to ask if either of you guys have ever been in a broken down car situation like that at all.
Well, my boyfriend's old ZuZu broke down many times. We were gonna go on a hike one day and we were driving a few friends, and it just like broke down on the side of the road, and we called AAA here. So
Yep.
yes, many times, but it's never smoked like that. And honestly, every time it broke down, if there was any smoke, actually one time there was smoke coming out of the like the air
Oh
vents.
gosh.
Oh, I like ran out of the car. I'm like, I'm not staying here.
That's so scary. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been in a broken down car, honestly.
I had it happen to me one time where I was in a really busy road, similar, but I was able to get my car to the side of the road, luckily. So I wasn't just like completely blocking traffic. But it still happened where I was like at a stoplight and then I went to go and my car was just like not going for whatever reason. And yeah, I had to call my stepdad to come rescue me. So it was awful.
Were you pissed off like Kristen?
No, I was so scared. Yeah.
Did it shut off on you and you literally didn't want to start it because it's overheating?
Yes.
And I don't want to because it's overheating.
Well, no British cops approached me, so I don't know how I would have reacted if that happened. So we then see Trey, Lauren, and Steven at the hotel where the fashion show is going to take place. Trey says what's cool about fashion is that it's straight up wearable art. They're all eating in the hotel room, and Steven comments about how fast he ate his sandwich, and Lauren asks if he wants half of hers and says, "You could use it," and smacks him on his bare stomach.
And that was
It
loud.
was so loud. I was like, that sounded really painful. And also, why was he shirtless at the table at all?
So cute, though.
Yeah.
They were, like, totally flirting.
Very
and,
flirty.
Like, I love
Yes.
when they're calling each other honey.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Honey.
In the baby
I know.
voice.
Do you want some honey? I'm like, oh, Lauren and Steven being cute.
So cute. Lauren talked about how cool makeup is and also says that it's like wearable art on our faces. She says she always wears her makeup depending on her mood. You can always tell when I'm in a bad mood because I wear lots of dark makeup. And then Steven leaned in close to her face and asked if she was in a bad mood. And she says, no, it's just blue to match her shirt. And then she said when she's in a good mood, you can tell because her makeup is matching what she's wearing. I just thought that was really cute.
Yeah, and
I
how
thought it was
confusing.
really cute too.
Yes, yeah.
like poor Steven's like, well, what,
yeah, but it's
what
dark.
am I supposed to do here? Yeah.
It was a baby blue, Steven.
Yeah.
Come on, get with it.
I do love that he immediately looks directly at her face like, are you in a bad mood?
Yeah.
He's very concerned.
So next we get back to the car situation and we see Alex and Sam finally pushing Kristen's car over to the side of the road. And then her dad shows up as the car is getting towed. And I just thought it was hilarious. Her dad showed up and he looked like he had been golfing and he was probably like having a really great day golfing, like playing like his best game ever. And then Kristen calls that her car broke down and he's like, oh, I have to go.
Pissed.
Yeah.
He's
mad.
so pissed. Yeah. And actually I've written down that it's so relatable.
Yeah.
Because if I was in that situation, I would have immediately called my dad and he would have been at work and he would have been like, are you seriously? Like, and I'd been like, I need help. And he'd be like, all right, I'll be, you know. But he's it's so relatable. He's so pissed. And Kristen knows it too. She's like, I am in so much trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So next we see Kristen and Alex at a restaurant, and Kristen is telling Alex that her dad says she better learn to love her car because she's going to have it for the next 4 years. And we learn that it was Kristen's fault the car broke down because she didn't put oil in it. Alex asks how Kristen is supposed to know how to put oil in a car, and Kristen asks her if she checks her oil. Alex says no, and if something happens, she just calls her dad. And Kristen says, does everyone check their oil or something? But I had to agree with them because when I got my first car, my dad didn't teach me how to change the oil. He was just like, I'll do it for you.
No, but it's pretty standard to know that the car needs an oil change.
I would disagree.
Really? I mean, here's the thing. I knew the car needed I wasn't doing it. My dad was doing it, but like I knew it needed an oil change, and if something was going wrong, it was probably because it needed an oil change.
Candace, you were better than
yeah,
some of us.
better than me, yeah.
Yep. I would not have known.
I didn't know until like I purchased my first car, but that I was like 22, and then I was taught like you have to get an oil change every 6 months or whatever, you know. But before that, I didn't do it at all. So
that's so funny. I thought this conversation was so ridiculous. I was like, everybody knows the car needs an oil change.
I feel like now I'm like, oh my gosh, come on. But yeah. being 17.
No,
I get it.
That's really funny. Kristen not putting oil in her car is relatable because my dad took care of my car for me back then. But I mean, I did know that was a thing to do. So, that's so funny. But I mean, I don't know the first thing about cars other than that. But
yeah.
I love, though, that Dennis didn't immediately rush to getting her a new car because it shows that he's not spoiling her. He's really making her, like, work hard and appreciate, the value of a
Yep.
dollar. So I really like that of the little that we know of Dennis so far.
And if he told her about the oil change and she just blatantly ignored it, then yeah, why would you reward bad behavior?
Right.
Yeah.
The conversation then changes to Steven, and Alex asks where Steven is, and Kristen tells her about the fashion show. Kristen says Lauren probably thinks she's all cool for going, and mockingly says, I'm going with Steven to a fashion show because I'm going to fashion school that you don't even need brains to go into.
That's such a bitch.
I know. I was like, oh, she's so mean.
And she says, Alex says, who's he with? And she goes, try an LC. Kristen is just so not an LC fan. But yeah, so rude. Like, fashion school is, like, not easy.
Exactly.
I heard it as her saying, like, fashion school that you need brains to get into.
Oh.
No.
Yeah, she said
no,
you don't even need to.
Yeah, that you don't need brains to get into.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she was paying Lauren a compliment, but never
No,
mind.
Absolutely not.
So the next scene we see is Trey, Lauren, and Steven arriving at the fashion show. We get a glimpse of the runway and some of the models. The camera shows a model in a very short dress, and it looks like she's taking her underwear off. It then cuts to Steven saying, that one's hot. The fashion show's underway, and we get glimpses of the three of them checking out the models. They're seated in the front row, and at one point, Steven says, Trey, check that one out. And they fist bump each other with Lauren sitting in between them.
It's gross.
So nasty.
It's gross.
Come
it's
on,
gross.
guys.
And I love that Lauren has like the stank face on when
Yes.
she's like looking down at their interaction. She's just like, ew. Like, they are gross, Lauren. Yes, that is gross.
Yeah.
During the show, one of the models looks directly down at Steven, and when she walks away, he says she's not too skinny and that she has a hot face.
To be fair, that model is super cute.
Yeah.
But I'm not crazy about the pink suit she's wearing.
I agree.
It's pretty awful.
I also feel like saying, oh, she has a hot face. I was like, I don't know if I would want, like, that's just a strange way to say that someone's good looking. Like, you have a hot face.
I think it was awkward because Lauren was sitting there, and I think he knew, like, Lauren likes me or whatever, and, like, he didn't want to be, like, too much. But honestly, I think Steven is so gross in this scene.
Yes.
Okay, but she asks Steven, I think this was one of the other models, if one of them was unattractively skinny, and he outright goes, she's hot.
But yeah, and I think he's like, I don't know, I feel bad for Lauren because she clearly wants him to be like, yeah, you know, she's unattractively skinny, and he's just like, he's such a boy in this scene.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Like, I'm expecting him,
such a 17-year-old boy, like, he just can't help
yeah,
himself.
I'm expecting him to run away any second to hide his boner. Like, it's ridiculous. He's
clenching his thighs.
Yeah. Like, he's so gross. Like, I'm just like, Steven. I get it. Like, looking at linoleum makes 17-year-old boys want to have sex, but like, like, God, I can't take credit for that quote. It's from Buffy, but he drives me nuts in this scene.
After the show, the same model comes up to Steven and tells him he's so gorgeous. The model and Steven take a photo together, and the model runs off saying, oh, she's mad, in reference to Lauren. And then Trey tells Lauren that the model thought she was Steven's girlfriend. And I went back to double check this, and Steven did say on Back to the Beach that MTV didn't set up that interaction, that the model like actually came to him and said that.
I think it's legit because Steven does have a really naturally pretty face.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he does. And like, she was looking at him during the fashion show.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious. Yeah.
Like, for whatever reason, and maybe it was partly because there was a camera following him.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
She's a model, and she wanted, he was cute, and she was like, cool, maybe this will be like a thing for me. But yeah, he does like have a really naturally pretty face. I would have spotted him out of a crowd too back then.
Yeah.
So
I can't even see Steven as hot anymore after listening to him on Back to the Beach.
I
cannot remember the feelings that I had.
I still haven't even finished Back to the Beach because it's such a chore to listen to him. And I'm gonna feel so bad if he ever listens to this, which he won't. But
I know, Steven, we like you. We just,
yeah, I just yeah, I can't.
I know, someone help.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what it is. I think it's just that he's so
non-insightful.
Yes, and he has this tenor to his voice where he's like da 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 da.
Yeah, he does.
I'm like, calm down, Steven. Rein it in, buddy.
The three of them then enter the after party at the Spider Room in Hollywood, and we get a little montage of people dancing. Steven asks if they want to drink at the bar and says that he's buying. And then we see a woman pole dancing, and it cuts to Lauren saying, "I don't feel comfortable here." Lauren asks the boys not to leave her, and when they say they won't, she says, "Yes, you will." And then we see Steven dancing with a model from the show while Lauren is watching from a distance, and Lauren does not look happy.
And it's literally disgusting.
It's so gross, and it goes on and on for a really long time, it felt like.
Yes, and how old is this model?
Yeah.
Because she is grinding on Steven like there is no tomorrow. And I'm like, this is so inappropriate if she's 20. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is super awkward. And I felt really awkward watching it.
I felt so bad for Lauren.
Yes. And she's with two boys, and obviously they both want to stay there. She has no person to go back to the hotel with. I felt really bad. And Trey trying to play Steven's wingman is really, really funny. But that whole scene was so uncomfortable, and it was an inappropriate place for teenagers to be. And you see that little scene of Lauren trying to dance and have a good time, but it's awkward because there's probably gross guys around her, and I would leave too, Lauren.
She just wasn't into it. She was basically trying to play it cool the whole night and trying to make it okay what they were doing and what they were saying. And even when the model takes a picture with Steven and she runs away going, "She's mad," talking about Lauren, Lauren had to act as if she was like, "Oh, what did she say?"
Yeah.
Instead of getting super pissed at the fact that that model was being super annoying to her.
Right.
I just felt so bad for Lauren.
She looked a little heartbroken there.
Totally understandable. Steven was just flirting with her.
Yeah.
And this is I'm sure that she thought she was going to have some magical weekend with Steven up in LA without Kristen, but...
And you can tell she really thought something was going to happen because whenever she leaves and she's talking on the phone, and I think she's talking to Lo. She could be talking to another friend. I don't know, but I just assume it's Lo. And she says, "This is not working." As she leaves. And it makes me think that she had this plan to win Steven over during this trip. And it just was not happening. And I feel bad because, and it had to be more than just that club was awful because she's crying.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So, yeah.
That club looked nasty to me. And it was so the shoulder to shoulder people like that. I was
so easy.
It did. Yeah. So after a long while of Steven dancing with the models, Lauren has had enough and she goes outside and gets in her car to make a phone call. And she tells her about the models hanging out around Steven and the one who called him gorgeous. And then she leaves and we see Steven hanging outside the club with 3 models around him. And so I was really glad that she did just leave like that. I was good for her. But I also was wondering how Steven and Trey got home or to the hotel, you know? I was like, what about them?
I was watching something on YouTube and it was, again, one of those Kristen and Steven answering questions. And somebody asked that. They were like, did Lauren just leave you there? And I can't remember what the answer was. Do you remember what the answer was?
Me neither.
Okay. Yeah. I'm I can't remember what the answer was, but I think he said it was set up by MTV. So they had a ride home or something to that effect. But yeah, so they were just did she just ditch you guys? That's super awkward.
But rightfully so.
Yeah, I think she probably brought her car for whatever reason, and then she just drove back to the hotel, and MTV got them back to the hotel because the only reason they got into the Spider Room was because of MTV.
Exactly.
So they were like, "Yeah, stay, dance with more models. Let me film this."
Also, whose parents would let them go up to LA for a weekend to go to a fashion show?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Jim and Kathy, just send Lauren with Steven and Trey up to LA. They can't possibly get into anything bad. This is how girls go missing, okay? Ever hear of Natalie Holloway?
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Next, we see the boys golfing, and Steven is telling Jonathan, the golf captain, about the fashion show and Lauren getting upset with him for hanging out with the models all night.
Why is golfing such a thing?
I know. Laguna? It's every episode, I feel
Anytime boys golf a scene they should cut out of the show. They're so boring. Like, I can't.
I did have that Steven clearly did not think any of it was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he did not think that anything happened that was that upsetting to Lauren, and I feel like Lauren was really hurt. And this just shows how dumb boys are.
Yes, yeah.
Like, you have to spell it out for them. It's so sad.
Next, we see Lauren and Jen driving while Lauren tells her how cool the fashion show was. She tells her about the interaction with the model who thought she was Steven's girlfriend, and Lauren says the model was dumb as dirt. Jen asks if Kristen knows about all this, and Lauren says she doesn't know. And I thought it was really funny in this scene, too, how there was a lot of cars honking at them the entire time. It was very strange. I was like, is one of them...
Jen's driving, right?
Yeah, so I'm like, she must have been a really bad driver, or some of that was added in. I don't know.
Why does that not surprise me?
Yeah,
About
exactly.
sweet Jen.
Yeah, I know. So Kristen and Steven arrive at Pomodoro for dinner, and he tells her about how fun the fashion show was and says all the models were so hot. Kristen asks why Lauren didn't want to go to the after party, and he said she was stressed out, but him and Trey had a great time.
Stressed out. Like, what does that mean?
I know.
She was annoyed that you were grinding with models. Okay, it's fine, Steven.
Ridiculous.
We'll let you have that one, Steven. She was stressed out.
So Steven asks what Kristen did last night, and she said she went to dinner with Zach. He doesn't look happy about that and asks if it was just the two of them. Kristen says yes, but then mentions that Zach has a girlfriend and says how cute they are together. Steven asks how she knows that, and she says that Zach's screensaver was a picture of his girlfriend, and when she called him, their conversation was so cute. Steven is still visibly unhappy about this and asks what they did, and Kristen tells him they went to dinner and then she went home, to which Steven replies, random. And I was so frustrated seeing him tell Kristen about all these hot models he was around. And then she's like, I had dinner with my friend who is a guy, and he got all jealous.
Who has a girlfriend and talks to his girlfriend in front of me.
Yeah.
Like, he got increasingly more upset when she talked about his girlfriend.
Yeah.
I was like, Steven, relax. You are a jealous and rage person.
I wrote that down. I said, I think he's about to be in a jealous rage here. So, yeah.
Like, I was so irritated with him. It was like, the more that she tried to smooth it over, he was like, how could you go to dinner with a guy who has a girlfriend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, what did you do after? And she was like, nothing. I went home. He's like, really? It's like, yeah, because he has a girlfriend.
Yeah. He's just so accusatory of her. Yeah.
While, he's out bumping and grinding.
Exactly.
With all the other models.
Yeah,
So
because he
what is
certainly
mad
wasn't
about?
thinking about Kristen and Zach when he was dirty dancing with the model in the pink suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steven asks if she wants to go home after this, and she says no. They both ask each other what they want to do, and neither of them say anything, but instead share some very flirtatious looks with each other, and then they get up to leave. And then we see them entering Steven's house, and the episode ends.
Yeah, MTV wants us to think that they hooked up, and I think they did too.
I mean, it seemed like that's what they wanted to say, let's go do that. So,
yeah. Well, again, I feel like these teenagers are having so much sex because I was having no sex.
And they're like freely going to each other's home.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I was having zero sex. None.
I don't think I even thought about that in high school.
I mean, I thought about it, but I wasn't doing it. I mean, not even that many of my friends were having sex. Like, I really, like, don't... The amount of sex that these kids have on this show is insane to me for how old
They're
they
25.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
they're living the lives of 20-somethings.
It's wild. And I mean, sure, maybe some of those times they weren't hooking up. Maybe they were just hanging out, whatever. But, I mean, it certainly seems like they were doing more than that. And the emotions were so high for all of these relationships, too. And usually they're not that high unless sex is involved. Kristen blatantly says that she heard that Steven and Lauren had sex, so we know that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know.
And the way that the show does it, it always makes it seem like they don't have to sneak around. Like, they just go to his house and they're good.
Yeah.
Like, that's so unrealistic for high school. Like, they'd be doing it in the car or something, I feel like.
I feel like boys had more leeway than girls, though. Like, boys could have girls over, I feel like, way more than girls could have guys over.
That's true.
My best friend in high school, she was always at her boyfriend's house, and his parents were just like, like, it was fine. If I had asked to have a boy over, my mom would have been like, you don't know any boys. And I'd have been like, yes, I do. I have boyfriends. And she would have been like, oh, sure you do. Okay. You know, like, yeah. I would have been too afraid to ask, honestly.
Yeah. Well, did you guys have a favorite outfit for this episode?
I really liked Alex's pink and striped
Mhm.
skirt, but I thought it was really funny that Lauren, this like fashionista girly, went to a fashion show in her cute outfit, which was just two tanks
Yep.
layered on top of one another.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was like dressing up for them.
I'd probably say Lauren's 2-layered tank look because I did that all the time. I thought that was like, I literally thought that was the height of fashion. And it would always be like 2 really brightly colored ones.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So it'd be like red and orange, dark blue and light blue. Like that was.
Or white on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still, like, if I'm wearing a t-shirt, I'll wear a tank top underneath it. I still do that, like 2000s where the tank top's hanging out underneath. I don't wear crop tops, but I like certain crop tops, so I'll buy them and I'll just wear a tank top underneath. I do that all the time.
I do the same thing because I can't pull off those ones that just come down to like right below your boobs. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
Raise your arms.
Yeah.
I said Alex's outfit in that one scene was my favorite too, just because I feel like I have a bunch of pictures of me in skirts like that. And then what was your guys' favorite part of the episode?
My car is Dunzo.
My car is Dunzo.
Yes. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, it's iconic. How do you not love that scene? And how many times did MTV play that as like a trailer or a preview? Like, I heard it so many times. So, yeah, definitely hilarious. And I also love Kristen imitating the cop.
Oh my gosh,
with the accent. So you're telling me. It makes me laugh every time. And that poor cop was probably just like, Jesus Christ. Like, you know, like these teenagers. Yeah, he was having a rough day.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Millennial TV. If you enjoy listening to us, please consider subscribing to or following the podcast on whichever listening platform you hear us on. We always love any type of feedback, and you can reach us at millennialtv@gmail.com. That's millennialteav@gmail.com, or on Instagram @millennialtv. This is Liz, Candace, and Adrienne, and we hope to have you back next week.